Hello students, welcome to my third video. In the previous two videos, I explained the poem Palm Tree by Rabindranath Tagore, and I also taught you to find out the rhyme scheme of a poem. In today's video, I'm going to take up a prose piece, Uncle Podger Leaves for Work by Jerome K. Jerome, which is chapter number 4 of your literature book. Jerome K. Jerome was an English writer who is best known for his humorous book, Three Men in a Boat. This book became an instant hit, after which Jerome K. Jerome wrote many plays, dramas, essays, etc., but they were not as popular as his first book. Three Men on the Bummel is a sequel to the book Three Men in a Boat. Sequel means a recorded work or a written work which is a continuation of the previous work. Like it may be a film or a story where the theme or the story is repeated, or maybe the characters are the same. So Three Men on the Bummel is a sequel to Three Men in a Boat. Bummel means a stroll or a journey. It may be a short or a long journey. So Three Men on the Bummel describes three people who take a journey across Germany. Uncle Podger Leaves for Work is an extract from the novel Three Men on the Bummel. Now, Uncle Podger is a very interesting character portrayed by Jerome K. Jerome. He is portrayed as a very dominating kind of person who's very bossy, throws orders at everybody and expects everybody to obey his orders. He is very careless and forgetful, but he is too proud to accept his mistakes. He makes innumerable mistakes and he always blames others for the mistakes that he has committed and never accepts his own fault. So this is how Uncle Podger is portrayed in the story. Uncle Podger leaves for work. In this story, you will get to know the things that Uncle Podger does. From the time he wakes up early in the morning till the time he rushes to the station to catch his train for his workplace. It is a very humorous story. Humorous means amusing, funny. It is a very funny story and I'm sure you all will enjoy it. So let's begin. Uncle Podger leaves for work. From my Uncle Podger's house to the railway station was an 8 minutes walk. What my uncle always said was, allow yourself a quarter of an hour and take it easily. What he always did was to start 5 minutes before the time and run. I do not know why, but this was the custom of the suburb. Many stout city gentlemen lived at Ealing in those days. I believe some live there still and caught early trains to town. They all started late. They all carried a black bag and a newspaper in one hand and an umbrella in the other. And for the last quarter of a mile to the station, wet or fine, they all ran. Here, the narrator, who is Uncle Podger's nephew, says that the railway station was an 8 minutes walk from Uncle Podger's house. And Uncle Podger very wisely suggested that one must keep a quarter of an hour, that is 15 minutes in hand, and start for the railway station so that one reaches the railway station well in advance, because it was just an 8 minutes walk. So if you keep 15 minutes in hand, you will very easily reach the station. But Uncle Podger never practiced what he preached. He always started just 5 minutes before the time and had to run, because he had to cover 8 minutes walking distance in just 5 minutes. So he had to run. The narrator says, I do not know why, but this was the custom of the suburb. Custom means the usual practice, and suburb is an area which is outside a city. So main cities, like we have Kolkata, And the suburb of Kolkata is the area outside Kolkata. We have the suburb of Mumbai. Mumbai is the main city, and outside the city we have the suburb. So he says that this was the usual practice of all the people living in the suburb. They would never start on time. They would all start late, and all would have to run in order to reach the station to catch the train. Many stout city gentlemen lived at Ealing. Ealing is a major suburban district of West London in England. So he says that this was the practice of all the people over there, and they all started late, and they looked all similar because each of them carried a black bag and a newspaper in one hand and an umbrella in the other, because they all were going to their workplaces, so they had a black bag, a newspaper and an umbrella with them. And since all of them had the practice of starting late, the last quarter of a mile they had to run, whether it was wet or fine, that is, whether it was raining or whether it was a sunny day. They all had to run in order to reach the railway station in time. Folks with nothing else to do would gather on the common of a fine morning to watch them pass and cheer the most deserving. It was not a showy spectacle. They did not run well. They did not even run fast, but they were earnest, and they did their best. The exhibition appealed less to one's sense of art than to one's natural admiration for conscientious effort. So the narrator says that people who had nothing else to do early morning, they would gather on the common. Common means the public place or the common place. So these people, they would gather in the public place in order to watch these people running to catch their trains. And they also cheered and applauded for the most deserving one. Most deserving, the most sincere runner, or the one who was running the fastest. It was not a showy spectacle. Spectacle, a sight, a visual striking performance or a display. So the narrator says it was not a showy spectacle. It was not a spectacular sight. It was not something good to see. Why? Because these people, they did not run well. They did not run fast, but they were sincere in their effort. Earnest, sincere. They were sincere in their effort, and each one of them tried their best to reach the station on time. So showy spectacles are those where we see the athletes running because they have the physique, they are trained for it, and they can run well. But these people, they were not trained to run fast, but they were sincere in their effort and they ran their best. The exhibition appealed less to one's sense of art. It was not artistic at all. This sprint, this running was not artistic at all, but people liked it because of the sincere effort, the conscientious effort, that is the sincere effort that these people made in order to catch their trains. It was not that my uncle did not rise early enough. It was that troubles came to him at the last moment. The first thing he would do after breakfast was to lose his newspaper. We always knew when Uncle Podger had lost anything by the expression of astonished indignation with which, on such occasions, he would regard the world in general. It never occurred to my Uncle Podger to say to himself, "I am a careless man. I lose everything. I never know where I have put anything. I am quite incapable of finding it again for myself. In this respect, I must be a perfect nuisance to everybody about me. I must set to work and change myself." So here the narrator says that it is not that Uncle Podger was a late riser. He did not rise early and so he had to run. It is not so. It is that troubles came to him at the last moment. After having his breakfast, what he would usually do was he would lose his newspaper. And Uncle Podger had always an angry expression on his face when he lost something. And the people in the house, by his look, by the look of anger on his face, they understood that Uncle Podger must have lost something. And then they would all be worried and know that now there was trouble coming up. But he says that it never occurred to my Uncle Podger to say to himself that I am a careless man, I lose everything. So he says that Uncle Podger never admitted his mistakes. He never tried to find fault in himself, and he never told himself that I must work and change myself because I must be so irritating, so annoying, so I must be a nuisance to everybody. But he never made any attempt to improve himself. On the contrary, by some peculiar course of reasoning, he had convinced himself that whenever he lost a thing, it was everybody else's fault in the house but his own. Instead of admitting his own fault, what he had thought, what he had made up his mind is that if he lost something, it was not his fault, but it was the fault of everybody else in the house. This is a kind of reasoning that he had given to himself, and he convinced himself of this reasoning. So that is why he never admitted his mistake, but whenever he lost anything, he always blamed others in the house for his mistake. So students, I have completed up to this paragraph of the story in this video. Rest of the story I'll take up in the next video. I am sending you an assignment with a reference to context and a few questions. You will read up to what I have explained today and answer the questions in your literature notebook. Till then, stay safe, happy learning.